Hello everyone, I'm Father Aaron. Welcome to The Dungeon Minister! Today we pick up our adventure where we left off, in the caves of the gnolls and kobolds. Mostly the gnolls, the largest portion of the kobold army having taken off, abandoned the gnolls, stealing a lot of the treasure on their way out the door. Treasure that they had earned themselves, so, take nothing from the kobolds. Our adventurers, 2 second-level elves, a 3rd-level halfling, and a 4th-level thief, have let go the leader of the gnolls, Garrick, who has proved to be a deceitful, untrustworthy individual, but they are holding out the hope that he could redeem himself, that he could actually be honest with them, because he has provided a map on how to get to Hrothgar's eyes. What are Hrothgar's eyes? Is it just a pair of eyes laying there on the mountain? What on earth are we going to? Hrothgar's eyes. But he's provided a map. He didn't say what it was. He didn't explain it. He just said, "This map, Hrothgar's eyes. You go." Okay. So they've set Garrick free along with his companion, the guard, who'd gotten drunk, and off they go. The adventurers spend the night at the caves. In fact, actually, they spend 2 days because they want to heal up some wounds and they want to be really prepared for this journey. They are about to make a journey into the mountains beyond where they've ever been before. Now, as I say, they have this map, and it was a map that I drew and gave to the players, and I would share it with you, except my players are 11, 9, and 6 years old, and they scribbled all over it, and it became unreadable, so we threw it away. At any rate, I will show you the map that I generated on the HexTML, and you'll be able to see there where they're going. They leave the caves in the morning, heading north along the shoreline to a path which they had seen in the last couple of days as they're kicking around the caves, a path which comes down a slope of the hillside into which the caves are cut. This path leads up and into the hills and eventually the mountains north of these caves. Only a couple of hours into their journey, it begins to snow. Snow, even though we're talking early October, I think that's when we played this, and I'm generally keeping the time of year consistent with the time that it actually is, the game time and the real time. There's a little bit of flux when we have to cut an adventure in the middle and spread it out over 2 weeks of play. But generally speaking, I'm trying to track the seasons. It's just easier for them, it's easier for me, it's easier for everybody. But I think it was probably early October, late September, perhaps even. And it's already snowing. This mini ice age is setting in. It is getting colder, unnaturally colder, earlier and earlier in the year. So they begin to walk, and it's snowing. Now they're making their way at first through hillsides. The path is relatively well marked. That Garrick has indicated on the map, they can find there is something of a path. Clearly, some amount of traffic goes up and down here. Eventually, the route they are taking is defined not by a path because it vanishes. It peters out. It is no longer a definable, identifiable path, both because the path is simply not there, but also because it's snowing and you can't see as well. Anyhow, the route now is marked not by a path, but by land features. In front of them, a valley stretches out into the hills, but on either side, the ridges rise up, and Garrick has indicated, take one of the ridges. Don't go through the valley. He doesn't say why, but he says don't go through the valley. Well, maybe they figure, maybe at the other end it's too hard to climb back up, because they know they have to go up into the mountains. So they figure, well, maybe it's a cliff wall at the end of it and it's too hard to climb. We'll just take one of these ridges. So they do. They choose the one to their right, to the east side, and up they go, climbing and climbing. It is late on the first day, 4 o'clock perhaps, maybe 5, and the sun is getting low in the sky when across the valley, which at this point is half a mile wide, maybe a little wider, at the distance, the elves can spot something moving on the other ridge, coming in the direction from which they've come. Goblins. A party of goblins moving down the ridge, some of them riding direwolves. This is no good. Now, the elves at first want to cross the valley and attack because my boys are set on hating goblins. But The others talk them out of it. We're going to keep going. We'll just stick to our path. They're not bothering us. We won't bother them. Rules to live by. So, on they go. The sun is setting. Night is coming. And the storm is becoming more fierce. The wind is starting to howl and the snow falling more thickly. They need to find shelter. Anything else, they need to find firewood. And this ridge that they're on, as they climbed up, they eventually left the trees and the forest and all that behind, and now it is just open ridge line. It's the beginning of a mountain, really. And in this place, because of the harsh winds that blow through in this particular valley, there just aren't any trees up at the top. But they see in the valley, there's quite a forest of conifers, pine and fir, that sort of thing. So they see that down below, and they think, well, we could go get some firewood there. Maybe we could find shelter down there. It'd be better than up on this wind-swept ridge. So they decide, yes, we'll go down. They pick a path downward. Now, where they arrive doesn't matter too much because I've designed an encounter for the valley. I knew they'd have to get down there eventually. If I describe the weather conditions, they're going to need to go down there. They're being railroaded here. So I don't care where in the valley they are. Wherever they come down, this is where it'll happen. They come down to a place and they begin collecting firewood and looking for a good spot to make a shelter. And they find one, a sort of a dense cluster of trees, and they figure in there we can construct a shelter. It helps that my eldest boy is in Scouts, and he reads a lot of outdoorsy kind of books, and he's pretty sure that he could construct a viable shelter using just, some twigs and some branches. They make camp. They have an evening meal and turn in to sleep. Leaving someone on watch, they do remember those goblins going by. But most of them are asleep, and I think it's during Touchberry's watch, I want to say, when he hears something. Wolf. Out of an abundance of caution, Touchberry wakes up his friends. Now, at first, they don't think anything of this as a wolf. Okay, we're out in the wilderness. There's going to be wolves. We have a fire. The wolf isn't going to bother us at the fire. But it's getting closer. It's getting closer. Now they start to get worried. They pull their weapons and they begin to look into the darkness. Of course, the elves have infravision, so they can see heat and cold. And of course, it's very cold. It's snowing, right? It's a very cold night. And they mark something hot moving through the woods, coming right toward them. And into the circle of light charges a werewolf. Thank you. A werewolf. Now, those can only be hit by silver or magic weapons, or of course by a magic spell, such as Magic Missile, and that is one of the first things that Bob Johnny lets fly. Just to keep you up to speed, Touchberry and Fleetwood have magic swords, and Fleetwood has a silver dagger. I think, yes, Fowfire has a silver dagger as well at this point. Bob Johnny doesn't. He's just got his axe, which is non-magical. The werewolf has come charging at them with an axe. A magic axe. Rolling for initiative, fight on. Now this is a pretty tough fight. The werewolf is no joke. He is no soft customer. I am making a distinction. The BECMI rules say that if a character is brought down to half of their hit points by a werewolf, they will become a werewolf. They will contract lycanthropy. And once they contract it, they have a month before the disease turns them into werewolves, before it becomes irrevocable. And after about 2 weeks, they start to show signs of the disease. They're ill, etc. But they have a month before it's irrevocable, 2 weeks before symptoms start to show. At any rate, I'm drawing a distinction. When this werewolf uses his axe, that damage doesn't count for turning you into a lycanthrope. Why would it? It's an axe, right? It's only the bite or claws, that kind of thing. The visceral sort of, the spit and saliva, whatever communicates the disease that will give you lycanthropy. So I'm keeping track of damage done, both in raw totals, but also how much is done by the werewolf's axe and how much is done by the werewolf's teeth. There's only one bite given by the werewolf that hits in this fight, and I think it hits Bob Johnny or Touchberry. I don't remember who it hits, but it's not enough to do half of the hit points worth of damage, so there's not going to be any contraction of disease here. They eventually do defeat this werewolf. Now remember, I gave it this magic axe because I didn't want any more sibling rivalry over who has a magic weapon and who doesn't. Plus, I know I've got some big fights coming, and I need to power up Bob Johnny's melee capability. He has a very good armor class, but his axe is just a simple axe. I mean, it's 1d8, it's no slouch, but he needs a little more. At any rate, they fight the thing and they kill it, and it drops its axe into the snow. There it lies. They don't look at it. They don't examine it. I mention, as he's coming in, the gleaming metal of this axe, how polished and perfect it looks, the carvings on the face of it. I'm giving every tell, this is magic, this is magic, this is magic. But they don't pick it up. They just, literally, they don't pick it up. They leave it laying in the snow. Along with the werewolf, incidentally, who turns back into a human being. I have it take a few rounds. I don't have it be like he's dead, poof, he's a human. It takes a little while. So actually they leave, it's still a werewolf. It's going to take a little while. What they want to find out is, are there any more of these? Are they going to have to fight more, and where did it come from? So they douse their fire and they begin to follow the werewolves' tracks. They follow them through the woods. It wasn't very far away, maybe half a mile or something like that, not very far. They discover a cave. This isn't a big cave, it's quite small. Each square here is 1 square foot. At the entrance to the cave there is a fire pit and a stack of firewood. The werewolf, when in human form, needs to keep warm like anyone else. Throughout the cave there are bits of skeletons of animals, deer, rabbit, raccoon, that kind of thing, laying about, whatever the werewolf in wolf form could hunt. There's also a large pile of soft branches, etc., covered over with a deer skin, where this creature or man, depending on what time of day, what mood, etc., at any rate, where he slept. In the wall there is a niche, a small shelf of rock, and on that shelf there is a box. The box contains some jewelry and some coins. Not a lot of coins, a couple of 100 coins total, and mostly it's electrum, some gold, some copper. The jewelry is actually worth quite a bit. There's 2 bracelets, a brooch, and a necklace, and altogether it's over 3,000 gold pieces worth of jewelry. So it's a nice little treasure here. The big treasure, though, was that axe that they left in the snow. They decide they're going to spend the night here. It's a better shelter. And so they make camp here. Oh, the other thing I should mention about this cave. The walls are covered with scrawling, writing, and drawings. Mostly done in charcoal, some done in blood. The words say, why, who am I, what is a man, kill, 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 blood. Great for kids, At any rate, all sorts of really disturbing messages all over the wall. This is a mind driven mad by his condition. He doesn't understand fully, he doesn't want to be this, but he is this, and he can't help himself. He's driven to kill. Also, on the ceiling, dominating the center of the ceiling, is a symbol. This symbol. I don't know if you remember that symbol. It has shown up before, here, in the tomb of the Barrow-wight. It's the same symbol as the symbol of that wight, of that evil magic user, that high priest from ages ago. It is the symbol of Heremod. That's the name I've pulled out of Norse mythology for this individual. Heremod is the name of this ancient high priest. His symbol is here in the werewolf cave, done in the same charcoal and blood. Done now, not ages ago. At any rate, the players camp there that night. The next morning they look around, there's nothing else of interest. They take the treasure, they head back to where they came up. Now, I didn't guide them there. I didn't tell them they had to go back that way. They could have gone straight to the east and gone back up the ridge. The hill here, the mountain here is climbable. But they decided they'd go back. When they get there, they discover the body of a man, now covered in a layer of snow, but the body of a man. Now they're faced with the fact that this werewolf was a human being. And I gotta say here, my middle guy started to feel pretty guilty about this. He started to say, well, we're murderers, that's what we are. And the others had to say, well, he was trying to kill us. It was self-defense. He attacked us. We didn't attack him. But he still felt kind of queasy about it, which, I gotta say, as a priest, I'm kind of happy with, right? Like, There's a moral action being taken here. There's a moral dimension to these things. And there are things that are evil, absolutely evil. But even the things that are absolutely evil, they are life. And to take them is a serious issue. So it's kind of cool. At any rate, they still don't pick up the axe. In fact, at this point, it's so buried, they don't see it. Okay. Well, they don't have the magic axe. Now, how am I going to get this magic axe to them? I'd like this to be the axe because I really want it to come through this werewolf because there's kind of a story behind this. How am I going to get this axe to them? Oh well, we'll jump off that bridge when we come to it. They go back up the ridge and continue on their journey. It's now midday when they come to a place where the ridge they're on joins up with the side of a mountain. It really kind of folds into the rock that it's a part of. They've been on the spur of a mountain all this time. As they join it and the other spur kind of comes in as well, in front of them, 2 peaks rise up, and between them, a valley. Okay, now we're talking about a very high elevation valley. They're above tree line, obviously, and they're entering this enclosed sort of long space. This has a name, Highmark Pass. Now, they don't know this. They find out later this is Highmark Pass. Highmark, not height as an elevation. It was as far north as the armies of humans and elves came 200 years ago during the Goblin Wars. When the goblins had come south and attacked, the humans and elves drove them back. That's when they established the keep on the northern sea. And they continued to drive them back into the mountains, and this is as far as they got, and this is where they stopped. In this valley are the remnants of an old fort. The remnants of this are now nearly flattened, all but invisible in the snow, but they can make out some lumps and bumps, so they know something is there. They go to investigate, and they discover it is indeed an ancient fortress of some kind. Here they get spooked. They don't want anything to do with this fortress. Now, it will prove that it was a good move. Later on, they'll discover that that was wise. There was no danger for them here because, well, I'll let you wait till that adventure to find out. At any rate, this time they want nothing to do with it. They're going to steer clear of it. And so they're now looking around, where can we find a place of shelter? Because it has taken them most of the day to get up here. There's really nowhere to shelter up here other than against the cliff face or in the ditch. Around this circular fort, there was a ditch dug. You dig the ditch and pile the earth up kind of thing. Well, in that ditch would be the best place to shelter up here. They don't decide to go there. They're looking somewhere else. At any rate, wherever they're going to shelter, they're not going to do it now because they hear an unsettling, jarring, nerve-shattering, howling sound. What is this creature? It sounds like horror manifest. In fact, they each have to make a wisdom check, and those who roll higher than their wisdom are paralyzed with fear. Only one of them fails this. Most of them roll underneath their wisdom score. They just get lucky with the dice, or they have higher wisdoms. Fleetwood does not. He's paralyzed with fear as this howl surrounds them. And then into their midst, boom! A rock comes crashing. Thrown from one of the shoulders of the mountain, a rock crashes into their midst. It hits Fofire and Bob Johnny glancingly, so they take some pretty heavy damage from this rock. And where did it come from? What on earth was that? Then the howl comes again, and now they can pinpoint where it's coming from. On one side of the valley, down from the mountain heights, is charging this enormous white figure. Hairy white thing. 2 more of them behind. Yeti. Now, strictly speaking, Yeti are not in the BECMI rules. They have Sasquatch, and they're described as kind of chill, kind of relaxed, kind of like, they're going to have some chai tea and talk to you about world music. But these are not those. These Yeti I actually got out of the Grenadier, what was it called? Monster Manual. At any rate, Grenadier, I'll figure it out later and I'll put a graphic over here and then I'll say, oh, why didn't you remember that? Anyway, Grenadier put out this monster guide. Grenadier models, they would make little, miniatures, And then they put out a guide for the miniatures they made. So you're like, oh, well, now I have to get the whole alphabet, right? And they had A to Z. And the Y was Yeti. In there, the Yeti is horrible. Horrible. And I decided to take mostly that. So it's a bit of homebrew going on, a bit of borrowing from Grenadier. The Yeti. 3 of them come charging down to the attack. This becomes the single hardest battle my players have had. Still to this day, actually, the single hardest battle they have fought. It is ferocious. The Yeti are serious business, first of all, hit point-wise. The fact that they have paralyzed one of the players with fear, and he has to keep trying to make saves to shake it off, so they're down 1 sword, right? And they're just ferocious. They do a lot of damage, and there's 3 of them. So it's basically 3 on 3 for about 2 or 3 rounds of play before Fleetwood, pulls himself together and joins the fight. So it's not easy stuff. This gets very dangerous, and the characters are getting lower and lower and lower in hit points. And I'm starting to think I'm going to have to pull some punches. I'm going to have to do something. When the dice turn and the players start to succeed a bit better and they start doing some damage, finally things start to go in the players' favor, and they kill one of the Yeti. I take that as an opportunity to roll morale check because, okay, one of our company has died. At the morale check, 1 stays to fight. The bigger of the 2 stays to fight. One of the smaller ones boots it. He's out of here. He's not going to continue this. Eventually, now it's 4 on 1. It's a lot better odds. They do kill the big one. There's still one out there who's run off. They don't know how many hit points he may have left. He's only got a few. He's in bad shape himself, but they don't know that. He's run off. Now here they are, heavily wounded, in serious trouble, in the mountains with almost no shelter. What are they going to do? At this point, they decide they're going to try to make camp just up against one of the walls of this canyon, up the walls of this valley. This is not a great idea. There's no shelter here. And I have to weigh, the fact that they're going to have a night's rest with the fact that it's not going to be restful at all. So they do their rest. They do not recover any hit points. Now, I know that's a little hard, but they don't recover any hit points. They're not getting any decent rest, right? I mean, you try sleeping out in the snow. You're not going to get a good night's sleep. You're not going to, heal up or anything like that. So they wake up the next morning. They are no better off than when they went to sleep. What are we going to do? And they start, what are we going to do here? They decide that with this new day, they are going to go back to the cave where the werewolf had lived. They're going to go back to that cave, and there they will take shelter. Now, again, instead of going down a ways to the valley and then cutting down and finding the werewolves' home that way, they're saying, look, we don't know exactly where it is. We didn't approach it directly from the ridge. We went down to that other area where we gathered firewood, where we made camp, and then we went, let's just go to where we find our footprints. At least then we know we can climb up and down there. So they go back, and they go down. Here's a chance to get that axe. Ha! So what I have happen is they come down and they see the body, and they see the lump beside it of the weapon. And because it's a magic axe, and I really want them to pick it up, it has some latent heat within it. There will be another reason for that heat. You'll see later. There's some latent heat in it, and so the snow is thinner there. It's been melting off of it slowly. Then they decide to pick up the axe. They pick it up, they give it a good look, and then they go, oh, this must be magic. Bob Johnny, you use an axe? Here! So now Bob Johnny has the axe. Whew. Anyhow, they spend a night, actually I think they spend 2 nights in this cave, in the werewolf's cave, with the creepy graffiti and the creepy symbol on the ceiling and all the rest of it. They spend a couple of nights there before they are ready to head back out onto the trail. But we pick that up the next adventure.